Yeah, but, yeah.
All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Hyde Park Town Board. Please join me while I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now may I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss a personnel issue?
I make a motion.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye. Howard, thank
You
you.
don't need to have
Two folks.
Sure. So, sorry for the delay, gentlemen. May I have a motion to return from executive session?
I make a
And
motion.
Second?
No decisions were made. And let's see. So we have two public hearings on the agenda, and then we have a presentation by PKF O'Connor Davies on our independent audit. So we'll just move through those. And the public hearing, actually the first one, hoping that you can go ahead and read the public hearing notice.
Please take notice that the Hyde Park Town Board shall hold a public hearing on the application of Orange County Poughkeepsie Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, for a hardship waiver from Local Law Number 3 of the year 2019, a local law enacting a 6-month moratorium on all communication towers and facilities in the town of Hyde Park on July 15th, 2019 at 7:05 p.m. at the Town of Hyde Park Town Hall, located at 4383 Albany Post Road, Hyde Park, New York. A copy of the hardship application is on file in the town clerk's office and may be inspected during normal business hours. Any person desiring to be heard on said moratorium application shall be given an opportunity to do so at the public hearing. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park, dated June 17th, 2019, Hyde Park, New York, Donna McGrogan, Town Clerk.
Okay, would anyone like to speak on this, at this public hearing regarding this application for a waiver from our moratorium? No? So Warren, did you folks, yes? Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't
No, that's
recognize
okay.
that you did. Okay, hi.
Good evening, Scott Olson on behalf of the applicant for the waiver application. Doesn't appear that anybody's here to comment on the application, which is fine. So I don't want to waste your time unless you have any questions of the application. I'd be happy to answer.
No, I don't, but Warren, did you want to kind of review that with the board?
Well, I reviewed the application, and I prepared a proposed resolution approving the waiver. So I guess I could read that, and that would make you understand what the rationale would be to approve the hardship waiver.
Well, if you'd like to. Did the board have a chance to look at this already?
I sent it all to you.
Yeah,
I have
so-
only one correction, and where when we get to chapter 101 of the zoning code, that should be 101 out of the town code, because for some reason our telecommunications tower provision is not in the zoning code.
Oh, okay.
Where is it?
It's in the town
Oh,
code.
okay.
Okay,
So,
well, I think if you just kind of review that this is not granting approvals in any way, it's merely allowing a waiver from our moratorium.
yeah,
is that
I mean,
right?
it's, we enacted a 6-month moratorium to give us time to change certain inconsistencies in our telecommunications tower local law, and which is inconsistent with other provisions of our zoning code. And basically, we're not looking to make any substantive changes to that. We just need to clean that up, but that's not ready to go yet. We do have in the moratorium a hardship waiver provision, which the applicant has taken advantage of to make an application to waive the moratorium as applied only to this particular project. And I reviewed the application, and it appears that the facility is intended to remedy a certain capacity and coverage issues in the surrounding area of the property known as the Anderson Center for Autism, located off Route 9. It consists only of an installation of a 62-foot tall utility pole support structure and related antenna and equipment located on a 100-square-foot leased area. The area of the proposed small cell facility is not located near existing residents or other sensitive receptors, and it is believed that the location will not adversely impact views from the Hudson River.
So, but
True.
my understanding is that there really there's not been a formal application
That
yet
I
made.
don't know
Is
about.
So we did submit an application to, I don't know if it was the planning board or the ZBA, I forget, although I have it here. Probably the planning board, because prior to that, when I spoke to, and I forget her name, but the planner.
Cynthia?
Correct.
Yeah.
And she said, we acknowledge the discrepancy, and she said, but the planning board is going to take jurisdiction of that, so I think we submitted it to the planning board. Mr. Dupree, correct?
Yeah.
He contacted me very shortly after and said, whoa, hey, hang on, we have a moratorium in effect, and you didn't schedule the so there are definitely, we just started the process.
Okay.
It's submitted, but there has to be supplemental materials
Right,
if
and
the board.
escrow paid and that type
Exactly.
of situation, and I think.
The whole
that-
process has to be basically gone through.
Okay, all right.
So you're you haven't gone before the ZBA, only the planning board, as far as you know?
You haven't even gotten
They
before that, we
haven't
really
You haven't
submitted
even
it.
started the application?
Honestly, we knew the moratorium was coming into effect, and we really wanted to get the application in
Okay.
as soon as we could. I technically think it was filed in the town before it was filed with Secretary, but it doesn't matter.
So basically, I've drafted the resolution to grant the variance on the condition that application be made by Verizon to the planning board rather than the zoning board of appeals for their approval, and that it be determined by the planning board that the project location will not have any significant visual impacts upon the surrounding community or the Hudson River, that they'll do during their environmental review and permitting review, and that notwithstanding the provisions of our zoning law, the ZBA is going to acknowledge that the planning board will have jurisdiction. However, we don't want to have final approval granted until we change the law, which I'm sure will change before they're finished with the review process. I don't anticipate.
And I saw that was the only comment that I had on the resolution
Yeah.
was, we just want to make sure, it sounds like that will happen that way, but if we get to a situation where something comes up with the change in the law, and if the application is ready to be decided upon by the planning board, we don't want it to wait, hopefully not wait too long. But
We can deal with that at the time. We can always amend the resolution, so.
that's true. But it sounds like,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I think we'll have we're going to limit our review of the existing law just to those procedural inconsistencies, so we should have that by next month. But this
Okay.
way you can get started on your planning board application.
Great.
And I'm sure it'll take a couple of months.
Oh, yeah, no,
At least.
absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll be finished with our rezoning in, at the most, maybe 2-3 months at the outside.
Okay,
so-
sounds like the timing will work perfectly.
I think
Right,
so.
right.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any public comment on this law? Okay, so may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like to have a motion to add at the dais the resolution 715-13, approving the application of Verizon Wireless for a waiver from local law number 3 of the year 2019.
I make that motion.
The second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So the second public hearing is the continuation of the public hearing for local law C, amendments to the town code and amendment to the town's comprehensive plan with regard to the creation of a town core zoning district. And this is an ongoing public hearing because it's an ongoing process. We've been embarked on this, I don't know, sometime last year, and we're still working through some of the finer points of the law. So would anyone like to speak on this proposed local law? Okay, so I think what we should do is continue the public
Turn it to
hearing. This is the only meeting that we have this month, so should we continue? Did you get a chance to speak with Bonnie?
Bonnie and I have communicated. She sent me, I'll discuss this with you tomorrow
Okay.
at our meeting, but she sent me certain revisions that she's made. I'm in the process of reviewing those, and we made another date to have a telephone conference to discuss
Okay.
all of that on Thursday, I believe.
So should we continue the public hearing to August 12th?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's quite possible by then we'll have the revised
Okay.
law.
So may I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 12th?
Make a motion?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, so moving on pretty quickly, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of July 1st?
Make a motion?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so thank you so much for coming and waiting and being patient while we work through some housekeeping details. And, welcome back to Hyde Park Town Hall. So maybe you could just start off your presentation by telling us who you are and how you arrived here.
Do you want to have a seat, or do you?
Yeah, why don't you sit
or-
here? It's probably a little more
Have a seat. The
comfortable.
mics are on there, that way you don't have to stand the whole time. You're welcome. If you just pull the mic up next to you, because you're being televised. Thank you.
All right. My name is Chris Kopp. I'm one of the government partners that's been assigned to the town of Hyde Park from PKF O'Connor Davies. Jeff Shaver was the on-site partner during the course of the audit. Unfortunately, he had a vacation planned this week and he couldn't attend, but he figured since I reviewed the report, I could go through it with you. And again, we appreciate the, number one, the opportunity to provide audit services to the town, and for you taking time out of your evening and your agenda to let us present some of the findings. If you'd like to follow along with me, unfortunately, sometimes we do jump around in the book a little bit, but I'll try to keep it flowing through. If you turn to page 2, right after the table of contents, I believe this is probably the most important item in here for you. This is the independent auditor's opinion. And we're very pleased to say that in the bottom paragraph, we gave you what's known as an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that an auditing firm can provide a client. So you received, it's also known as a clean opinion, unmodified, unqualified. It's got a lot of names over the years, but that's what you're striving for. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll
Nice
get into
job,
the
Supervisor.
we'll get into the results. If you flip forward to page 54, like I said, unfortunately, I have to jump around a little bit.
That's fine.
On page 54, we have a summary of your general fund. That's your main operating fund that the town operates, and this is the budget that you adopt. So how we present it is we have 4 columns. We have your original budget, which you adopted, the final budget after your modifications, after your board resolutions, your actual, and then your variance with that budget. If you go to the first column marked original budget, and you go to the third number up from the bottom, you'll see $63,956 in brackets. So if your budget came in perfect, you planned on using roughly $64,000 of your prior year surpluses to balance your budget. Of that, you used $5,000 of your appropriated fund balance when you adopted the budget in order to maintain taxes at a certain level. And the rest were what are known as encumbrances, purchase orders or commitments that rolled over from the prior year. As you go to the second column, you can see you modified that, and during the course of the year, you appropriated some money out of your surplus in order to meet your current needs. So again, if everything had been perfect, you would have utilized $138,000 of your fund balance. But if you slip to the third column, you'll see not only did you not utilize your fund balance, but you actually added to it. So you actually exceeded your budget by $644,000. So you had a good year. How did we do that? If you go to the top section, you'll see a line total revenues. You can see that your total revenues exceeded budget by about 610. So the bulk of this was from revenue sources. So the good news is that you exceeded your sales tax revenue by about $300,000. And overall in that category, that's even $200,000 better than you had in 17. If you slide down, you can see that you exceeded in sale of property and compensation of loss. You exceeded your budget by $54,000. And again, that was some insurance recoveries that you had, cancellation of prior year purchase orders, items like that. And then if you go down, your state aid came in $161,000, better than you anticipated. And the good news is, again, that was on your mortgage tax line. Why are those important? Because sales tax and mortgage tax are a little bit of a story about the vibrancy of the community and shows you that, you had a very good year. and that you stayed very conservative when you put your budget together, because you also know that you can have a good year in those categories, you can have a bad year in those categories. So congratulations that, you know, you kept your budget conservative during that process, and you exceeded it, and now you add it to your surplus. On the expense side, really is not much of a story to tell. You came in under budget on almost all your budget lines. You can see that you had savings spread out throughout your budget. The largest was in public safety, about $73,000. Usually that's because you either didn't spend overtime or you had some vacant positions during the course of the year, or in the case of, you know, towns, it's usually you manage your budget so tightly that you probably said no to some purchase orders. But it was spread throughout all the various budget lines. So you ended the year with almost $2.5 million in surplus. I'll come back to surplus when I get done with the highway fund. So if you flip forward to page 62, just a couple pages forward. Again, the same 4 columns. And you can see that when you originally adopted your budget, you planned on utilizing $110,000. Again, during the course of the year, you modified it to $211,000, but you only utilized $22,000. So again, the good news is you came in about $190,000 better than budget. I mean, if you want to look at it as bad news, you did utilize some surplus, but it's not unusual during winter months and storms, especially when we had a lot of ice, more so than snow for salt. You probably went a little over on your salt budget.
Our highway superintendent's here, he does an amazing job.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell by the fact that you don't spend the entire budget, so you did a good job, and again, you didn't utilize what you planned. So again, you had a good year. The only other small budget I wanted to mention was your lighting budget. Your lighting budget, you do have a small deficit, about $5,000. You know, at some point, you might want to address that. That's on page 70. And if you look at the second column, you have your consolidated lighting district. And you can see your fund balances in brackets, $5,600. Again, small amount, but, you know, you should address it because it has grown over the last 2 years. So you may want to just find out which line is coming up a little short in there, and you may want to address it. Not a big deal, you know, just something we want to point out. So we talk about fund balances, which is really mostly what you're concerned about because you're putting your budget together and addressing needs. So if you turn to page 45, there's a summary of your various fund balances. So you'll see the first column there is your general fund. And as I said, you ended with almost $2.5 million. The second number up from the bottom is probably the more important number to you. That's your unassigned. That's the amount of money that the town has available to handle emergencies, to handle your budget needs. And you have $1.6 million. That's about 25% of your expenditures, which is right there where the controller says that he'd like to see 15 to 25%. Again, that's just a range of numbers. You always have to look at your particular circumstances. If you have an aging infrastructure, you may need a little more fund balance. If you're more modern infrastructure, you may feel you can go a little lighter on it. You know, that's your determination, but you're right there in a range of having a good fund balance to meet your needs.
Does the state comptroller have a recommendation on?
He just said they kind of say between 15 and 25%
is the appropriate amount for
right. But again,
unassigned.
you have to determine that based on your needs because
And we're at 24%?
yeah, roughly. You know, so again, you know, I always use my wife works for a village, and I use her as an example. They have an old water system there. One pipe break could be $250,000 to $500,000
Right.
and seriously dent, you know, your fund balance. So it all depends on your comfort level, your ability to borrow, bond, everything like that. Your highway fund has about $824,000 in it. Most of that is classified as assigned because it's not unassigned because it's really raised by property tax numbers, so that money is assigned for highway purposes. And your overall fund balance is about 27%, with the unassigned at about 6%. But you do have $300,000 put away for snow and ice. So you've taken some of prior year monies, put it up for snow and ice for emergencies. You have $140,000 budgeted for accrued vacation pay. So again, you've put it in separate buckets, but it's there for you if you need it in case of an emergency. So your fund balance is strong, and you've been building it over the years, so that's good.
You don't
We
have
have
a
lots-
mic, you don't have a mic, we don't hear you.
There's lots of needs.
If you turn back to page 35 in the notes, we have a listing of your outstanding bonds. So, again, a lot of times the town board, looks at how much they've bonded over the years as a judge of how they've been doing. And you can see, you do have quite a few smaller bonds outstanding, issued in 2008, 11, and 18 mostly. And if you turn to page 36, we put an amortization schedule in here. And I quickly did the math on my way here, and if I look at 5 years, within 5 years, you're gonna pay off 54% of your debt. And within 10 years, the next bucket, you're 86%. That's very good, that's very aggressive. It shows that you've managed your debt well, you haven't mired yourself in a lot of long-term future plans. So you've done a good job of as debt probably came due, you maybe replaced it, you waited for issues to fall off before you added new issues. So again, 54% is very aggressive and 86 is superb. So I figured you might be interested in a little bit on your debt. And now I'm going to flip all the way back to the front, and I'm only going to touch on this because you may get questioned.
Yes.
On page 12,
Page what, 12?
there's a page called the Statement of Net Position. This is different than your fund level statements where I just spoke about. Your fund level is where you adopt your budget. That's how you manage the town. The Statement of Net Position is the conversion of a municipal entity into a business type entity. This is where you record your assets, your infrastructure, your debt, and items like that. And on the bottom, you'll see that your total net position is now in a deficit. And it's like, why? Why would I be in a deficit when you said I had a healthy fund balance? 99% of that, 13.7 million, is what's known as OPEB, other post-employment benefits. That's the anticipated actuarial cost of health insurance for your employees into the future. This was the first year where there was a change in how they handled it. And in your case, it was almost a $4 million hit to your bottom line. Because what happened is they were letting you amortize this cost in over 30 years. But then they passed that pension regulation, GASB 68, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Your auditors probably explained it to you, where even though you paid your bill and paid all your obligations, you might have had a liability on your books because the state plan wasn't 100% funded. It's 98.4, so it's excellent, but there's still a little portion there. And they figured since you put all that liability on, why not absorb the cost of OPEB? So they passed GASB 75 because they like to pass these things. And they made all municipalities record all of that cost of future health insurance estimate in this year. So you went from a positive to a negative.
So what would happen next year?
Next year, it'll be back to just the normal cost.
Okay.
They'll look at your employees, they'll look at the cost of health insurance, the age of your employees, and they'll do a new calculation, but it won't be as dramatic. Now it'll just be the normal increase.
So basically, this is
This was the
addressing
the big hit,
I see.
but you'll always stay in a deficit.
We'll always, I was going to ask, we'll always be in a deficit.
Always, because under New York State guidance, there is no vehicle for you to put money away to fund this into the future. Because you as a board are always going to, sorry for mumbling, always going to face that dilemma of, are you going to tax today's taxpayers for an expense 30 years out?
Tomorrow's, right.
And the answer is, most taxpayers say, well, I might not be here 20 years from now, I don't want to pay that. So that's a dilemma that you'll face if and when New York State ever comes around to creating a mechanism to allow municipalities to fund it.
But it's only for health insurance.
Correct.
Benefits for
Yes.
for all the employees that we have today as well as past employees.
Correct. It's
I
both
see.
active and inactive. I mean, if
Okay.
you want an idea, I think we have the count in here.
That's why we can't do roads, Howie.
That's for 24 inactive and 51 active
Okay,
employees.
24
So
inactive.
75, a third of your
75.
employees are inactive. So those you pay for, those you've always expensed on a pay-as-you-go basis. What you're putting away for here is those 51 for the future, and then the estimated cost for those 24 that are retirees until they're no longer on health insurance.
Great.
So-
Well, hey, you can come anytime and give us news.
Do you have any questions? I know I went through it quickly, because I know boards have
No, I just wish our comptroller was here, just so that we could thank him for all the great fiscal management and advice he gives us. And I know that you guys were very efficient in your audit, and we appreciate that, got right on it. Yeah, I feel very good about what we've been able to accomplish with adding substantially to our fund balance by living within our means and still getting projects done.
Yeah.
And I know one of the things you didn't that is in here in some location is the $1 million that we received from Belfield towards a sewer project. So
That'd be in the capital fund.
that's in our capital project. So
Right.
that's not really even reflected in the fund balance.
No, that would be in
No,
the general
it's
fund
in
balance,
the-
capital fund balance.
Yep, so I mean, we've been able to get a lot of projects done over the last few years and still able to live within our means as well as not borrow too much money. So it's good
Good.
stuff, yeah.
And we'd like to thank Tom and Joanne too for all their
Yeah,
assistance.
Tom and Joanne are amazing and
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's always tough the first year of an audit. We ask a lot of questions to get
Sure.
ourselves reacclimated,
But
but they did a great job. and we
they're
thank
very
them much.
comfortable in this,
I don't want to, gloss over this real quickly because, people ask, what do you do as an elected official? And this is our number one job, is to really to be, the watchdog. We really we run this town like we would with our own family business. And, I state when we first came in, we couldn't rub two nickels together. We didn't know how to find the two nickels. And when we had the auditors in, we kind of had our heads down because, it was a mess. And I know you thank Tom and Joanne and all the department heads, but it really comes from leadership with you, Supervisor. So first of all, I want to say thank you for your diligence because, there's two keepers of the gate. There's you and Tom. And, and I also want to thank all the department heads, Howie, the town clerk, everyone really
Police
works
department, yes.
really hard. Each department head works really hard so we can have a report like this. Because ultimately, when we go to bond and borrow, these things matter. This is where the savings are. So, thank you for doing the audit. I want to thank our comptroller's office. I'd like to thank all the department heads, but mostly I want to thank you for your leadership because it's a true reflection on how you handle the town of Hyde Park. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. It's very kind of you. And yeah, it's kind of a passion,
It's a passion.
And it's good to have great partners. And it really is about all pulling in the same direction. And that's how we're getting stuff done. And without that, it just doesn't work. So it's really good. So. Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you very much. And
Again, thank you.
look forward to seeing you
Thank you
again.
so much.
for the good
On
news.
behalf of the
Thank
firm,
you.
we appreciate the opportunity.
Come anytime with that news.
What's that?
You can come anytime with that news.
All right.
Hopefully same as next year.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
take
again.
care
Thank
now.
you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Okay, would anyone like to speak on any matter of town business or resolutions? Because we've now opened the public comment. Okay, looks like we're ready to go with
Okay.
our fully electronic resolutions. So let's give it a
Here we
whirl.
go. Here we go. Resolution 715-1 of 2019. Resolution accepting and recognizing the independent audit financial reports for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and the independent audit report on communication of internal control matters identified in the audit.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Let's see, Resolution 715-2, 2019. Resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Supervisor to execute a change order agreement with American Petroleum Equipment and Construction for the Highway Garage Fuel Tank Replacement Project.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-3 of 2019, resolution awarding the 2019 highway blacktop bid to Peckham Road Corporation for Town of Hyde Park highway blacktop work and authorize the town supervisor to execute the Town of Hyde Park highway blacktop contract for 2019.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-4 of 2019, resolution authorizing the town supervisor to execute a change order extending the term and modifying the payment for the shared service agreement, the IMA, between the town of Hyde Park and the county of Dutchess for snow removal.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Getting ahead of the game pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Resolution 715-5 of 2019, resolution amending the agreement for the expenditure of highway monies for general repairs and maintenance of highways within the town of Hyde Park to include extreme winter recovery funding and authorizing the town of Hyde Park Town Board and Highway Superintendent to execute the amended agreement.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-2 of 2019, resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Board to accept the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee Grant Award for 2019-2020 for the Town of Hyde Park Police Department.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-7 of 2019, resolution authorizing Town of Hyde Park Police Assistant Jennifer LaFave to carry over accrued vacation time.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-8 of 2019, resolution authorizing town of Hyde Park police officers Joshua Tucker and Michael Stallone to attend the 2019 State of New York Police Juvenile Officers Association, SNYPJOA, Annual Training Conference held August 26th through August 30th, 2019 in Lake George, New York.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-9 of 2019, standard workday and reporting resolution as required by the New York State Comptroller for Hyde Park Town Historian Shannon Butler in accordance with the New York State retirement system requirements.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye. Resolution 715-10 of 2019, resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Deputy Assessor Mara Rothman to carry over accrued vacation time.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 715-11 of 2019, resolution authorizing Town of Hyde Park Town Board to create the position of an hourly senior account clerk in the Comptroller's Department and appoint Christina Naschus to said position.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
So I just want to explain this a little bit. You know, many of our departments are going through transitions, including our rec department. We had our rec director retire and our rec leader retire, and we will have some upcoming retirements or reduction in hours in our comptroller's office. So what we're doing is hiring someone to train under Joanne to take over those positions, or part of those positions, as the senior people leave. So, did we vote on that?
Yes. Resolution 715-12 of 2019, resolution authorizing a release of the balance of escrow for the town of Hyde Park zoning administrator.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And we've added this, right?
And we did add this at the dais, right? So-
Yep.
Yes.
Resolution 715-13 of 2019, resolution approving the application of Verizon Wireless for a waiver from local law number 3 of the year 2019.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And just for the TV audience, we apologize for looking down. We're all going paperless, and so I feel like my head is down the whole time.
Right.
But you know, it's just another way. So when we have an audit next year, our expense for
Our paper
our paper expense will
be
go
down.
way down, because boy, are we knocking down some trees with the amount of paper we print
So,
here.
yes,
So
that is the intent. So how did the trial go?
It was great.
That's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So
No
we'll be
glitches.
ordered. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Take care,
much,
have
sir.
a night.
Thank you.
Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
So we'll see you tomorrow?
See you, Mark.
Howie.